And I start trying to explain to him it's a real complicated safe. It's real delicate. You got to do this. And he's like, we're going to play a little game. So he stuff a bunch of gauze in my mouth and wrap my head up. And then they start punching my head like it's a punching bag. And the guy pulls me down in a headlock. And he says, I don't want you to think about yourself. Think about your family. And then they grab my toenail with a pliers and start ripping it out.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. Welcome back to another episode of Iron Therapy. I'm Dave Palumbo, joined by my cohort and my co-host, RX Muscles staff psychotherapist, Lesley Timbol. Lesley, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thanks. I can't wait for today's show.
Yeah, today's going to be a good one. It's for those of you who watch After Hours on a regular basis, Larry Pollack, who appears on that show, who's a good friend of ours and to the show and to RX Muscle, has an incredible story. You might have heard the story about him being kidnapped by the Mexican cartel down in Mexico and the trauma he went through, his escape from the cartel, and all the craziness he had to deal with when he got back to the United States. And Lesley, I knew Larry was going to eventually be on this show at some point, and I'm glad you guys got a chance to talk prior to the show. And I think that this story is so incredible that it needs to be told. And then also, what are the long-term effects of someone's psyche after going through something like that, the trauma?
Well, here's the thing. It's going to depend on the person. So I'm going to tailor it very much to what Larry's going through. But obviously, not everyone's experience is going to be the same. So if people can relate to some degree, it doesn't have to be everything that Larry went through, put it in the comments below. And I'm happy to either answer in the comments or we'll do another video on it. But, it's really important to find out what the lessons are, how Larry got through it. To your point, what are the consequences of it? Does he still have any kind of, we'll call it post-traumatic kind of symptoms because of it? All of this is really important. And I'm really happy to have this topic and Larry on the show today.
Yeah, so without further ado, let's bring in Larry. Larry, how's it going?
Good. Hi, Lesley. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Larry.
Twice in 1 week we got you, Larry. That's pretty good. You're becoming a real regular here at RX Muscle. Now, Larry, for those, let's assume everyone, I know a lot of people have heard the story, but let's assume people have not heard the story. Tell us, number one, what you were doing down in Mexico. Tell us what happened in Mexico, and then tell us what happened when you eventually got back to the United States, because all three of those little episodes are almost, I can't believe there hasn't been a movie made about your life, but it's certainly movie worthy. That's for sure.
They're working on it. So to back up a little bit, when I was 20 years old, I got in some trouble and went to prison for a few years and dealt with some stuff there, and then got out, became a manager for a marketing company, did pretty well there. After being there for about 10 years, that didn't go. I finally got out of that for various reasons, and then decided to open up a lab in Mexico, which was, in hindsight, not the best idea, but it seemed like a good idea at the time.
What kind of lab, Larry?
Anabolics, basically producing anabolics. And within 1 year, we were like the number one lab in the world. We were featured in Bill Llewellyn's book, Anabolics. And then Operation Raw Deal hit, and they rounded up everybody all over the world. They were looking for...
Let me ask you a question, Larry. I want to stop for a second and just ask you a question. When you become... Obviously, when you start a lab, an underground steroid lab, you're doing it to make money, obviously, right?
Right.
I mean, So you're making money, and that's great. And then all of a sudden you start becoming like the most popular guy on the block. Now, did that start making you nervous? Did you start getting like paranoid? Like, you know what, maybe being the most popular is not necessarily the best idea, especially given the business I'm doing.
No, because like no one knew who I was. Obviously the DEA found out, right. But I didn't advertise myself. I didn't deal with customers. I had a few distributors around the world that dealt with everybody else. I only dealt with about 10 people.
So you thought you were immune from the whole hype about the product line itself?
Yeah, I didn't. We had a website. It would just list the products, and we'd post the test results because I had a lab in Utah that would test all the products, batch test them for potency and everything. And we'd post all those lab results, and people would inquire on the website, but I never answered them back. So I never dealt with any of them because I didn't know who they were.
There was not a sense of paranoia at all. So you had no clue that anything was wrong, essentially.
Well, no, that's not true. I did know when Operation Raw Deal started that they were taking people down all over the world because it was all over the news. And they had I found out that they were looking for me in the States. They didn't know where I was because they had sent a letter to a P.O. box asking us to come in for a, I don't know, interview or interrogation or whatever. like we're really going to do that.
Yeah.
But I was the very last one in the whole thing to go down. So I saw everybody get busted before me. So yeah, I knew it was coming, but I didn't what was I going to do about it?
Right.
I was already in Mexico hidden away, I thought. And I had already hired Rick Collins as my attorney. And he said, sit tight and try to, wait for it to blow over. But I was outside their jurisdiction, or the USDA jurisdiction. At that time, the USDA was making deals with other countries and other police forces to go in and get people. Like they brought British Dragon out of Thailand. And so they got in contact with the Mexican police and sent them to go get me, which in the police there is the cartel. So the cartel came one night in the middle of the night, picked me up with machine guns in my face. Long story short, they had me for 16 days, tortured me a little bit with pulling my toenail out with the pliers to get the combination of my safe. And anyways, I ended up escaping out of there, which was a whole story in itself.
Let's step off for a second, just because I think this is an important point. So Larry's basically got this lab. He's making a ton of money. He's living large in Mexico because in Mexico, first of all, money goes a long way. You had a really nice house there, I believe, right?
Yeah, 3-story house, like everything.
I mean, you had cars. There was nothing you didn't want, right? I mean, you could buy anything you wanted pretty much at that point.
I had too much money. I did. I had so much money, I had nowhere to put it. I tried to put it in a bank in Belize, and I put like a couple $100,000 in there. And about 2 weeks later, they said, "You need to get your money out of here, or it's going to get seized."
Wow.
There was nowhere to put the money.
Now, why is that? I mean, there are obviously people who make more money than you that hide money. Is it that you didn't have like the infrastructure lawyers to hide the money?
It's not that easy. You think you can hide money? There's intermediary banks, and once the feds or the DEA, who has after you, they can get to those offshore bank accounts. So they're intermediary banks, and they threaten them that, if you continue this business with X person, we'll shut off your currency coming from the United States. So the banks are like, no, we don't want to do that.
And it's weird because you're in Mexico, so it's not, you got all this money, you can't even get it across the border. If you wanted to, just because people always say, why don't these guys quit? Like if you said, all right, you know what, I quit. I'm not going to do this anymore. Like you can't even get back to the United States with all this cash you got, right?
I could have, but everything was going on in the United States. That's where everybody was getting busted for the most part. So like, why was I going to go back there?
Right.
I was going to stay where I was. I didn't. Yeah. I should have moved somewhere else in Mexico or to another country, but
yeah, you should have gone to South America. So what happens now? What time did these people come into your house with the guns?
Oh, it was the middle of the night. Like me and my wife were in bed watching TV, and the doors fly open, and there's like 30 guys with SWAT outfits with machine guns with laser sight against my face.
Now that's got to be the worst nightmare of like that you could ever experience. Like you just like hanging out watching TV, and all of a sudden you turn around and there's guys with guns to your face, and you're in a foreign country. I have to imagine that you must have flashbacks about that, to this day. I mean, every time you hear a weird noise in the middle of the night, do you get like freaked out?
I did for maybe like 2 years after that, but not anymore. No.
Okay. So what happens? They come in and how do they forcibly take you out of there?
Well, they came in, they put the guns to my face, they pushed me on the ground, they hit me in the back of the head with a rifle, they handcuffed me. They said, give us a combination of the safe. I had a big safe there. It was like a dummy safe. I gave them the combination, but that had like $30,000 in it. It was just a dummy safe. Right. And then they said, give us a combination to the other safe. So they knew that there was another safe that was actually in the basement, buried in the cement, underground. But they knew about it. I found out later because there was an informant. There was a guy that worked for me like 6 months earlier who I kicked out because he was on meth. And apparently he got busted at the border smuggling illegals or something. And he somehow knew about my safe down there. That's the only thing I could think, because they knew about it. And he took him to me.
That's crazy. How did you have that safe installed? Did you have to like hire someone to do that?
Yeah, I hired someone from the States, a safe guy, and he came down across the border and he installed this safe. It was in the ground, and you could you'd lift up a carpet, and there was like this little round thing with a combination, and it was real hard to open because it was like a hair trigger thing. So you had to be like super careful. Like I had only opened it a handful of times.
And how much money did you have in there?
About $3 million.
Wow. So did you open the safe for them?
No. Someone yelled, somebody's coming. We got to get out of here. They dragged me up the stairwell, put a bandage over my head and took me out and threw me in the back of a van. And then I was laying down in the back of the van, and I think they put a bag over my head or something. And when we were driving, I'm like, I can't breathe. I think I'm having a heart attack. I think I was probably having that just from all that was going on. And they pulled over, and I saw that the guys who had taken me, they were all excited because they had that $30,000 that they got out of the big safe. These were just worker guys. And they had a bag of money, and they were all like excited about it. And then anyways, they pulled over, took me out of the van, put me in another small car, and then they took me to a safe house. I believe it was somewhere in Tijuana. I'm only guessing because I couldn't see, but I think it was in Tijuana. And
was that to where your house was?
Yeah, I was in Rosarito, which is just outside of Tijuana.
Gotcha.
And because we got there pretty quick. Anyways, and I could hear that it was wherever we were, it was very noisy, and Tijuana is very noisy, so it was probably Tijuana.
Right.
But I was there for maybe a week, and then they moved myself and another guy to another house somewhere way out in the boonies somewhere. I don't know where it was, where there was a lot of other people that they had kidnapped and they were holding hostage.
So you were like the one among many there.
Yeah. There was initially it was myself and one guy, and then they brought in this big fat man, and then they took the three of us in a van and they drove us somewhere out to some other place where there was more people. And while I was there, they were bringing other people in and out.
What kind of scenarios were running through your head at this point? Did you think that they were going to kill you? I mean, were you afraid to die? I mean, or what was your mindset? I can't even imagine what I would be thinking at this point.
So honestly, at first I was completely terrified. I was for sure they were going to kill me. I just wasn't sure how.
Yeah.
I had all the scenarios going through my head. Are they going to inject me? Are they going to shoot me? Or like, how are they going to do it? But what happened was guards that were guarding me, they told me if you give them the combination of the safe and they get the money, they'll let you go.
Right.
Well, I didn't really know the combination, so I made one up when they were torturing me. But anyways, they ended up getting the safe out. They dug it out with like what do you call it? With a fire, a torch.
Oh, torch.
Yeah, they torched. They opened it somehow. So they came back and said the Hefe's really happy. You know, he's happy with you. They got the money. Blah blah blah. They're gonna let you go. And then the guards that were watching me, I kind of befriended them a little bit, and then they came back in and like not so happy, and they said, we have some bad news. You're going somewhere else. And I'm like, oh great. So that's when they took us in the van to the other place. And then they asked me, they said, we need more money. They want another $1 million. And I'm like, you just got all the money. And then they wanted the money from my family. And they wanted my brother to give it to them. They said my brother owns the gym. I'm like, he doesn't have $1 million. He's not going to be there's no way you're going to get it from him. They don't have that kind of money. I said, you might as well just kill me now. Because there's no way they didn't have that kind of like disposable money just laying around. And anyways, they were negotiating with my brother to try to get another $1 million. And I knew he didn't have anything, so that wasn't going to do really any good. But I had a storage across in the States full of gear. And I told them that, you know, if you let me go, there's probably $1 million worth of gear there, and I'll give that to you. So that was just my bargaining tool. I was trying to use that to stay alive, basically. And, you know, that they would be seen by the you know, authorities crossing me, and it was too risky and all this. And up until about 2 days before I got out of there, they were talking to me, you know, on a daily basis, sometimes twice, 2-3 times a day, trying to, you know, figure out how to get more money out of me. And then they stopped talking to me. Oh. And then I realized, you know, that's not a good sign, because they're not talking to me anymore. Right. So now I realize this is just a matter of, you know, when they get around to, I could tell by the conversations that they were having with my brother that they were getting pissed off with him, because I guess he offered them $5,000. Yeah.
It's kind of weird because, you know, they kind of got $3 million out of you already. You know what I mean? So, you know, you would think it would be reasonable to believe that they got all your money. I mean, because they found the hidden safe. I mean,
they got the money, the product, they got everything.
Yeah. So I don't even know what at that point they thought they were going to get more from you, but maybe I mean, did you get the idea that if your family had money that they would have let you go in exchange for that money, or no?
Well, that's the way it works down there. The family has to pay to get you out.
Right.
And so the fact that they got my money, they didn't count that. So I got pissed when I went from being terrified to when, after they told me if we get the money, we'll let you go, and then they said we're not going to, then I was just angry.
Right, because at this point, you know, I'm not getting out of here. They're not letting me go. They're going to keep asking for more and more and more. So is that the point where you're trying to think about how am I going to escape?
I was thinking about that from like the moment they got me. Like literally, we had blindfolds, but I kept peeking out of my blindfold and looking around and trying to figure out, like, you know, how am I going to get out of this?
Right.
I think the guards probably thought I was completely nuts, because I'm like literally in underwear and a blindfold, and I was doing my like exercise routine every day, stretching and abs and push-ups and doing all this stuff. And I was doing that because I had to stay limber, because I'm thinking, like, whenever I get a chance, I'm going to have to get the hell out of here. I had to be mobile.
Were they feeding you?
What's that?
Were they feeding you and letting you go to the bathroom?
So in the first place in the beginning, they were feeding me actually not too bad, like actual food, what they were eating.
Yeah.
In the second place, it was like bologna sandwich and some potato chips. That's it. And I had to.
Oh, we lost you, Larry.
And then come get me and take me to the bathroom.
Oh.
So
I can imagine when you're eating a bologna sandwich and like that's all you're eating, it doesn't the bologna sandwich taste the best? It's like the best sandwich you've ever had probably in your life, right?
I wasn't there long enough to be for it to become that. No, it was just something to eat.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question because I understand what happened. You got to a point where you're pissed off now because you're like, these guys are going to kill me, but you have to still be terrified. And when you're first negotiating with them, you're kind of negotiating for your life. It's probably very terrifying. I can't even imagine. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. Like when these guys are like, say we want money, and you're thinking, if I just give them money, maybe they'll let me go. I mean, I really believe that
when they first came in the room, every time they came in, before they did the little torture business, I was like about shit on myself. Like I'm like, now they're coming to kill me now.
Right.
But after they did their little torture business, and then I found out that they weren't letting me go, I just got angry.
Right.
So I turned from being terrified to pissed off.
Were you at any point crying? Like, did they have you that bad?
Yeah, the first day when they grabbed the combination of the safe, and I start trying to explain to him it's a real complicated safe. It's real delicate. You got to do this. And he's like, we're going to play a little game. So he stuffed a bunch of gauze in my mouth and wrapped my head up. And then they start punching my head like it's a punching bag. And the guy pulls me down in a headlock and he says, I don't want you to think about yourself. Think about your family. And then they grab my toenail with a pliers and start ripping it out. And my whole body seized up like in convulsions. And one of them said, stop. I guess they thought maybe they were killing me or something because like my whole body seized up. And they're like, are you going to tell us now? You're going to tell us? I'm like, yeah. And so then I just started making up stuff because I had to tell them something. I just told them, yeah, the combination is this. I just made something up. But yeah, I was pretty terrified at that point.
Did you have the combination at that point, or you just didn't want to give it to them?
Say that again.
Did you know the combination, or did you not want to give it to them?
No, it wasn't that. I had only been in that. I had just got that safe installed like a month earlier. I only had been in it, maybe 10 times. And it was real hard to get in it. And I had the combination written down on something in the other safe. So I did at that moment. I don't know if I just couldn't think because of all what was going on, but I didn't know the combination. If I knew it, I would have told them because they were going to get it anyways.
I want to ask Lesley a question. Now, Lesley, you've heard up to this point, and I believe, Larry's a pretty tough character. You can just tell he's tough anyway, even before all this went down. I think a person who didn't have maybe his mentality, who would have been weaker mentally, I think they would have crumbled in this situation. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. I mean, you've got everything on the line. You can't see, you don't know what's going to happen. Your family's being threatened. Like every horrible thing that could possibly happen was happening. So yeah, I mean, it was the fact that you had that mental resolve got you through this. And I think that's, something that, there's two pieces. You either develop it or it's inborn. And I think for Larry, this is very natural. I think it's in his genes, so to speak. He has that nature. And I'll let Larry talk a little bit more about this. But for people who don't have that, yeah, if they're in that position, 100% they would crumble, which would be perfectly understandable.
There was a kid that was in there with me named Oscar, and he cried like the first 4 days nonstop, like just cried nonstop. Okay. Like there was a big fat man they had, and this guy just like slept the whole time. Like they were they weren't doing anything. And I realized, no, they told me at the border afterwards that nobody escapes. And you know why? I don't think anybody actually tries, because everybody there was just like laying there waiting to get killed. Even the kid Oscar, I told him, when they killed a guy the night before, some other, I guess, a rival cartel member, they murdered him in front of us. And I told Oscar, I said, we got to get out of here. We're next. And he's like, oh, don't say that. I'm like, what do you mean don't say that? You see what's going on here?
What was Oscar there for?
What's that?
What was Oscar there for?
I guess he owned a restaurant down there and they just wanted money out of him. They just take people for money. I mean, that's just their thing.
Right. Yeah. The only saving grace you probably had in your mind was that you didn't really do anything to anyone else. You kind of, the only reason you were there was for money. I mean, so
no, they told me, the guards, when they first started interrogating me, they kept asking me about meth. And I'm like, I don't have any meth. I don't know what the hell you're talking about meth. I'm like, you're in my house. You didn't find any meth. There was no, I don't do that. So originally, I guess what happened is this Frank guy, the informant, he was a meth head. Maybe he told them that I was dealing meth, and they thought when they went to get me that I was like infringing on their territory, selling drugs, like those kind of drugs. But then they found out I didn't do that. They said, oh, we fucked up. So even the guards kind of felt bad for me because they realized like I wasn't supposed to be there. I mean, I was there because of the money, but I hadn't really done anything to violate their code or stepped on their toes or did anything.
So now, in hindsight, now that you obviously when you were there, you didn't know this, but do you think the American government was behind this whole?
No, 100%. No, they did it. They did. I have it. It's documented. It's in the court documents. The DEA was in my house taking pictures of my house the same day that they were in there digging the safe out of the ground.
Are you serious? Holy mackerel.
The DEA is the ones that sent them put them on me.
That's even scarier, Larry, that it wasn't the Mexicans that came after you. It was the Americans.
No, it was when the DEA picked me up from the border in San Diego, they told me you weren't supposed to come back. There was a bodybuilder was found dead in the morgue, and we thought it was you. You weren't supposed to come back.
That must have scared the crap out of you even more, because now you don't even have the protection of the U.S. government. They're the ones who sent the cartel in there after you. That would be even more traumatizing for me.
I wasn't scared of them. I just told them fuck off. I've dealt with so many American police in prison and things. They don't scare me anymore. The Mexicans scared me, but those not them.
All right. Whenever I watch a movie, and maybe Lesley, you could probably attest, maybe agree with me or disagree, whatever. When I watch a movie about stuff like this happening, and you see the people escape, that's the most nerve-wracking part of the movie for me, because you don't know if they're going to get caught, and you put yourself into their shoes. You're like, all right, I just escaped the cartel. They could be right behind me. Maybe not. Maybe they're going to bring dogs. And you're on foot, basically, right? So explain first of all, how'd you get out of the house? Tell us the quick version, how you got out of the house. And then once you got out of the house, was your heart beating 6,000 miles a minute?
Yeah. So basically I told Oscar, we need to get out of here. And, he came up with this idea that when they're sleeping, because they would sleep and I would watch them sleep because, they told me to whistle to go to the bathroom. Well, I would do that in the middle of the night because I had to go to the bathroom and they were sleeping. Yeah. And literally I'm in one room and they're in the room in front of me, just laying on the floor sleeping. And I took myself to the bathroom most of the time because these guys are out.
Yeah.
And so he had this idea that we should take their guns. And I literally looked around them and I couldn't see any guns. So I'm assuming they were sleeping on top of the guns. So he thought, there was two guys in the room in the front. He thought he'd jump on one and I'd jump on the other one and then take their guns. But he was a little skinny guy. And I'm like, nah, I don't trust that. You're going to jump on the guy. He's going to come up and shoot you and shoot me. But I realized every time I went to the bathroom, these guys didn't wake up. And when I was looking for their guns, they weren't waking up. And I thought, you know what? I could just walk out of here, because when I went to the restroom, I went down this other like a hallway that went down a stairway to where there was a garage, and there was body bags down there, but there was a stairway going out. And I said to him, Oscar, I said, they're sleeping. We can just like walk out right past them. And he goes, no, it's too risky. I said, staying here is too risky. I'm going to go. And I didn't know if he was going to come or not. But anyways, I literally tiptoed 2 inches from their nose, right past them, down the stairway, and ended up in this big courtyard with a really high fence. And there was a garage door, like an automatic one. And I didn't want to push the thing because I didn't want to make noise. But then about a minute later, Oscar comes down. So Oscar's like, lift me over the fence. And he was a real skinny guy. And he was so skinny, he was able to pull his hands out of the handcuffs. So he already had his hands out. So I lifted him up, and he scaled the fence. And then when he came down on the other side, he just jumped down, boom. And then dogs in the neighborhood started barking. And this is like, I don't know what time it was, probably 4:00 in the morning. It's the middle of the night sometime. And he looks at me through the fence, and he just takes off running. And I'm like, oh shit. Now they're going to wake up, and they have machine guns. I know they had machine guns because I would hear them playing with them all day. So I just pushed the button on that garage door, and I scooted under there, and I just took off running down this like cobblestone street with glass, chasing after Oscar in the middle of the night. And my heart was beating.
Your heart beating.
Like it didn't matter. I was running over glass, and I didn't care because I knew there was guys behind me with machine guns. So I'm just chasing Oscar, running down the street. I caught up to Oscar, and we get to this turn in the street, and there's a cab, and we tried to wave down the cab, but the cab took one look at us and just took off. So then we keep running down a hill, and we run into like this bus station that was empty.
Larry?
What's that?
Did you have clothes on?
No, I'm like in my underwear, and I have the rag on my head from the blindfold. That's it. Yeah, I'm like naked. Well, I had
You're in handcuffs?
And handcuffs. Yeah, I'm like this. Handcuffs in front of me.
Holy shit.
So then somewhere in the bus station, Oscar took off. He went some other direction. I don't know where he went. And I run out on this highway, and I'm trying to wave down cars, but no one's stopping. So I keep running down the highway, and I run up to this taco stand. And there's like, these guys eat tacos in the middle of the night, all night, I guess. So I run into this taco stand, and there's like 10 guys in there eating tacos. And I'm like, hey, American citizen, I need help, kidnapped. And they're like, sit down, have a taco. I'm like, no, I need you get out of here. They go, I say, they're kidnappers. I said, I'll pay you, get me to the border. So these guys are like, all right, come on with us. And they put me in the back of this truck. No, I think it was a van also. And they said, what border you want to go to? And I said, Oda Mesa, because I knew that was a shorter border to get through.
Right.
So they took me to Oda Mesa, and we got there, and they got out. And when they walked up, the Border Patrol people there started harassing those guys. And then I got out, and I ran up there, and they're looking at me, and like, I'd like this bloody rag on my head, and handcuffs and underwear. And they're like, I'm like, American citizen, help, let me in. And the guy's looking at me really, he's like, why are you dressed like that? I'm like, I was kidnapped. Let me in here. So they finally come get me. And I told them, they asked me about those guys. And I said, no, they're okay. They're good guys. They helped me get here. So they put a blanket over me. They took the handcuffs off me, took me inside. And they gave me like a sack lunch. Same thing, like a bologna sandwich with some chips or whatever the hell. And FBI comes. So I'm talking to the FBI, and I'm telling them about kidnapping. Of course, I'm not talking about...
Emotional, Larry, at this point? Were you very emotional? Were you crying? Were you upset? I mean, were you so happy that you were rescued? I mean, what was going through your mind?
No, I wasn't emotional at all. I have this ability to block everything out under certain circumstances. I think that's because when I was young and I was in prison, like I can like shut down my emotions like completely. Right. So I don't feel shit if I need to. Like it's not something I try to do. It's just like under certain circumstances, I just do that.
What is that about, Lesley? When people do that?
Some people have that. It's almost a gift that under extreme stressful situations, emotions are taken out and they go into more of a immediate kind of crisis. What do I do about this mode? You'll see a lot of people, let's say even in people do this for a living where they're able to, whether it be, different kind of, let's say, police enforcement than what Larry went through, and they can see stuff, or the ambulance drivers, they see stuff like, picking up fingers off the railway track or stuff, and they don't get traumatized because it almost becomes, they become numb because of the situation. They have to be able to block it out. That's part of the coping mechanisms. Now, not everyone can do that, but some people can absolutely do that.
Yeah. The only thing I can relate to that is I got pulled over coming back we were in Andorra, which is a municipality that's like kind of between Spain and France. And my friends and I, we had bought anabolic steroids in Andorra. We went into France and then we realized it was all mountains. And so we came back and I didn't realize we're going to have to go through customs coming back into Andorra from France. And they wanted to search the car. We had one of these little hatchbacks that was loaded with anabolics in there. But I didn't think about anything of it because I figured, well, we're in a country that all this stuff is legal, but we were leaving one country and going to another, even though we were literally there for 10 minutes in this other place. And they came and they wanted to search the car. And I went into I become a negotiator. I become like a schmoozer. Like when that happens, I become like a politician almost. Because I got to, I don't want to show any panic. So I'm like, they're like, get all your bags and bring them in because they wanted to search the bags. So I was stalling and I knew the bag that had all the stuff in it. And I pushed it all the way in because it was like a hatchback. And I pulled all the other the big suitcases. We had all our suitcases with us, pulled all those out. And I said, all right. I said, if this stuff comes back, maybe they'll never go into the car and search the car. So we went in there and they're searching everything. And like a dummy in one of my like toiletry bags, I had like one strip of Anavar and it said oxandrolone, which is the generic name. And I don't even know why I had it because my friend's girlfriend wanted it and he said to bring it. I don't even know why we didn't even buy it. We didn't buy it. It was from home. Like I brought it. I don't even know why. And I said, oh no. And I'm thinking, I knew it was there and I knew they were going to see it because they took everything apart. And I try to tell them, they're like, what's this? They were asking this. They didn't really speak English that well. I'm like, this is vitamins. And so they were calling the consulate, the Spanish consulate to see what all the drugs are. And luckily, oxandrolone is made in Italy. So it was not a French or Spanish steroid. And so they didn't know what it was. And they just put it aside. They thought it was like I thought it was like vitamins. They didn't know. They don't really understand what anabolics were. And they never... And I was schmoozing them and telling them how, traveling is so tiring. We come from New York. And they didn't care about anything, but I was trying to distract them essentially. And eventually they kept us there for 2 hours and they never went back to the car. And they said, take your stuff and get out of here. But my heart was beating 1,000 miles a minute because I said, we're going to go to jail. I said, I can't believe this. We're going to go to jail for this. And we got out of it. But that's nothing compared to what Larry went through. I can't even imagine your brain just must go into another
totally different mode.
Another mode almost. Yeah. Like a survival mode that some people crumble, but I could understand how Larry just shut down his emotions and said, I got to survive here. I mean,
when they had me, I didn't sleep the whole time. I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
But my senses got super heightened. Like, even though I was blindfolded, I could hear every single pin drop, every move they made.
Yeah.
I knew where they were. I could smell them.
Right.
I was super aware, and my brain was going a million miles an hour calculating what to do next.
Sure.
But when I got actually to the border and got across, I was like relieved.
Oh yeah, you had to.
They actually came, some Mexican police came, and they said they wanted me to go back with them and show them where the safe house was. And I'm like, I'm not going back with you. They said, we'll protect you. And they're like, who's going to protect me from you? yeah. I said, I'm not going back in there. You're crazy. And the FBI said, we can't make him go.
Yeah. I wouldn't be on either. You'd have to be nuts to go back there, right?
Yeah. I'm like, I just got out of there. I'm not going back. You're going to protect me? Yeah, sure.
You know it's really bad, Lesley, when you have $3 million that was just stolen from you, and you have a house that you own there, and you just say, that's it, I'm out of here. How much is the house worth, Larry?
It was pretty cheap down there. It's like, I don't know, $250,000.
Was that something that you still own technically? Were you able to do anything with that if you wanted to, sell it?
They took everything.
Oh, they did.
Like I had a whole gym in there. They just took everything.
Wow. No, but what about the actual house? I mean, you actually obviously had a title for the house, right? You owned it.
I was told, I don't know if this is true, but I was told now that the Mexicans had a warrant out for me down there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's bullshit or not, but I was told I couldn't go back.
Interesting.
I wasn't going to try anyways.
Chief of police probably lives in that house now.
Yeah, it has all my gym equipment too.
Exactly. Unbelievable.
But when I'm dealing with when I was young and I was in prison, I learned how to deal with the prison guards and police and people like that. So when they get all, in my face and whatever, they get nothing. They get a blank stare. I don't care what they're saying. They can be threatening me, whatever. And they realize really quick, they're not getting anything out of this. I don't say a word. I just stare at them like, okay. So you're no fun to mess with after that, because you're not getting scared. You're not getting mad. They're not getting to you. So I just shut down. Just shut down. And it's like, okay, whatever you say.
Now, Lesley, that's a good survival mechanism to have. But
100%.
When you can shut down like that, what ramifications down the road does that have? Because eventually those emotions have to come out, right? I would imagine.
Generally speaking, they do, or they come out in some type of traumatic way, like PTSD or whatever, whether it be dreams or there be thoughts, movement, for a period of time. Sometimes it's forever for people. I mean, we see, with soldiers and anyone in the military, they can have PTSD for the rest of their lives. For Larry, he had it for, I think you said 2 years, Larry?
Yeah, like 2 years.
2 years, and you were able to get out of it. But that's also, you were able to get out of it because of your mindset. Someone who doesn't have your mindset, it would take a lot longer for them to get out of that.
Did you ever have any tough times or maybe even nowadays, does it ever rear its head? And, sometimes things just, will overwhelm you out of nowhere and you don't even know where it's coming from. And it could be from past traumas. I mean, do you ever experience anything like that? PTSD?
No, I pretty well think things out before I react. I know I have to think about things, even if someone threatens me, I don't really who are you really threatening me? I don't care.
Is that because you've been through what you've been through, which compared to what you've been through is nothing? In other words, who could possibly threaten you now in the United States that would be anything worse than what you went through? You know what I mean?
Oh, well, my whole life I was fighting people and fighting in prison and just going through all this stuff. So yeah, I don't really nothing phases me anymore. I'm not that I'm not thinking something could happen, but really I don't. I mean, my brother was murdered when I was 13 years old. I went to prison when I was 20, and I've been fighting with people like my whole life growing up. One thing I think in Mexico, one thing that helped me get through that was the fact that I had been through prison. I knew how to deal with guards, and I was able to like communicate with the guards that had me. The whole time they had me, I was talking to them, getting information out of them, making friends with them, you know, because I knew how to talk to them because I'd done that before.
Important. You want the guards to like you, you know, because you don't want them.
The actual guards, well, not in the second house, but in the first house, the two guards that this guy told me, you know, his dream was to open one of these sex hotels. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great. I can help you do that. I know how to do business. I can get money. We can raise money. Me and you could be partners in all this. He liked me. Yeah. And he was telling me stuff. He's like, they came and interrogated me one time and through them. And he said, did you see anybody's faces? And I said, well, actually, everybody wore masks except the one guy. This one guy, he's like the head killer. I found out later he was some crazy lunatic head of the Ariana Felix cartel. He didn't wear a mask. He didn't care if you saw his face. And I said, except for that one guy, he didn't wear a mask. They said, don't say that. If you say that, they're going to kill you. I said, okay, I didn't see anybody's faces.
Now, do you find that because of maybe you've become so hardened from being in prison and then obviously getting kidnapped and the trauma you went through, do you find that you have problems like opening up emotionally to people in relationships, whether it be male friends of yours or even in female that you're in relationships with?
If I'm in a really close relationship, like serious relationship, no. But everybody else is just like whatever. Like even friends I have, yeah, we're friends, but I don't get too close with too many people.
Do girls ever like complain, like, you know, hey, you know, you're too unemotional, you know, I feel like you're too distant? Because I mean, you do put a shield up because I don't blame you. I mean, that's the only way you could have dealt with that situation you were in, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm intentionally trying to be like that, but
yeah.
I know some people probably think I'm an asshole because I just don't talk to them.
Right. Well, I've had people ask me about you, and I said, Larry is a great guy. I said, that's just his personality. I said, if you went through what he went through, you probably have a similar personality.
I don't talk to them unless I have something to say to them.
Right.
You know, I don't like, I'm not the type of person to just go out of my way to like, you know, talk a bunch of bullshit for just to make conversation. Right. But I get along with most people, I think, you know, although I've had people, you know, who don't know me like at all post like online that I'm a real dick, you know, because of how I looked at them or something. I don't know.
You said, Lesley, I want Lesley's input on this. See, because Lesley, I feel like, and Larry and I are not like, I mean, probably if he lived around the corner from me, we'd hang out all the time, you know, because we have similar interests. But, you know, we talk to each other once a week, essentially, on the show, you know, or we text back and forth if there's a bodybuilding show about what's going on. But I feel like if I had a problem and I call Larry, he would be there to help me because I think he considers me a friend. And I'm the same way, you know, for him. But I do see I can see women or something like that, or people saying, you know, he's unemotional or he's closed. How do you get away from? In other words, it worked and served him very well, and he survived a horrible experience with that. But how do you undo some of that so that you can maybe have, you know, better relations with people? I mean, because events like that will definitely traumatize you and change the way your personality is, I have to imagine.
Well, it does, but my question would be, does Larry even want to change it? He might be perfectly happy with the way things are. Like if he's in a serious relationship and they have, you know, he's able to open up to her, you know, and he's not able to open up as much with other people, if he's okay with that, because keep in mind, the type of friends that Larry would have would understand. If they don't understand, maybe they shouldn't be his friend. So it's not necessarily that Larry has to change that, as long as he has some healthy relationships.
thinking women. I just know women, who that have said that to me, and I haven't been through what Larry's been through. Do you ever have women like say that to you, Larry? Like you're just not,
I get it from women who I have never even spoke to. like that I've had no conversation with. They like fucking put on me saying I'm like this fucking asshole or something. I'm like, I've never spoken to you in my life. I mean, I know you were there, but I didn't even have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are you going to do about that? It is what it is. I don't take it personally. Like I said, I don't even know. Sometimes I don't even know these people, or I might have had like one interaction with them, like in passing, with where I said 2 words or whatever. I don't know.
People can be overly judgmental in the respect of they jump to conclusions based on that. If they tend to be very expressive, if you're not expressive, they think there's something wrong with you. And they don't understand, no, there's different types of personalities. Like if someone, I remember, growing up when I went to school, I lived close to my school. So I walked to my school, and my best friend, she would take the bus because she lived further away. So she would see me walking to school and she goes, "Why do you look so pissed off all the time?" And I'm like, I wasn't pissed off. I was not. I was a very happy child. I was just heavy in thought. So when I'm heavy in thought, I look pissed off, apparently. So, it depends on who the person is. And like I said, what Larry was saying, some people who don't know you very well are going to come to very quick conclusions, unjustifiably so. Yeah. That's their problem. But what you were saying earlier, Dave, about people, if you do want to be able, if you are, let's say, in a relationship where you're dating someone and they want you to open up and you're having trouble opening up, that's something where, you can talk to. If you're not able to talk with that person, maybe you need to speak to someone like myself to help you work on how do you reestablish expressing your feelings and feeling safe. Because in order to feel, express feelings before, likely there was a reason why you had to kind of shove it down. And that's in a different way, not necessarily from, the cartel, but you're protecting yourself to some degree.
Yeah, Larry, if you're arguing with a girl, I can just see you just like not responding.
I don't argue.
Yeah, I know, but that's got to drive the girl crazy. I know.
No, I don't. I'm just like, you want to argue? I'm just like, you're gonna blank stare. I'm gonna walk out.
But that's doesn't that drive women crazy? Don't
Sometimes,
you find
yeah, they want to fight, and I'm like, I'm not gonna fight with you. This is stupid.
I teach couples how to fight fair because people learn how to fight in their siblings or in the
You can't argue with this guy and win. He'll just shut right down. I don't know how that you can make that work. You know what I mean? Because women want to talk it out, and he just will be like, I'm not dealing with this. Which is probably the right. It's just probably the right response, but it's not going to get you any brownie points with the girl.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't want to get in bullshit and get in trouble over some nonsense. For what? Over because she's being crazy over some stupid shit. I'm not going to get sucked into that. I'm just going to walk out.
I don't care. That I don't care act that doesn't work there, Larry.
Yeah, women tend to like to communicate, but the problem is that women also need to take responsibility for how they're communicating. Like it's one thing to say I have a concern about something, but it's approach. It's also approach. And I'm not talking about whether they're yelling or not, but it's the choice of words. Are they attacking? Are they use statements like why? Are they beginning with questions with the word why, because that puts people on the defensive. There's different techniques as far as how people can communicate their concerns where it doesn't feel like you're being attacked, at least not verbally.
Do you have children, Larry? I meant to ask you.
I have one daughter.
How old is she?
She's 22 now.
Oh yeah, so you had her during that time period? Was that going on?
No, her mom took her from me when she was 6 months old.
Oh.
And then she lived with her mom. I had joint legal custody, but she had physical custody, and they moved away to Florida. So I had visitation. So she very rarely let me see her. And then her mom died when she was 10. And then I had to fight the grandparents in court for custody for 3 years.
Wow.
And I fought that case from prison.
Oh my
when
God.
I was in TI, and I won. It's a published case. You can look it up.
Oh,
Pollack
you were in
versus File.
Tijuana at the time when you fought that case?
No, I was in Terminal Island.
Oh, up in California. Okay.
The custody case.
How do you get custody when you're in jail?
I literally would have to get on the phone from jail and be in the court and be telling the judge, you can't do this. It didn't get settled while I was in prison. I got out, and then I flew to Florida, and this thing went on for 3 years, this custody battle. And I finally got custody, and she came to live with me when she was 14. But by that time, she was brainwashed against me. They told her I was like the devil, and I was going to put her on the street selling drugs and all this crazy stuff. So she lived with me from 14 to 18, and she fought with me like on anything or anything. If I would say that, it's red, she'd say it's blue. She was just angry with me, but she's a straight A student, and she got a full scholarship to Stanford. And so she's doing well, but she doesn't want to talk to me right now.
How do you feel about
that? It's hard. I don't like it, but there's nothing I can do about it. It's her choice.
Do you feel that? Do you feel that you have trouble communicating with her, because of all this whole everything that went on? Well, she obviously knows the story, right?
When I got custody, I had to meet with the grandparents at the police station to exchange her to me, because the grandparents were so crazy. And the police told me, be careful. She had a rock in a sock. She was going to hit you in the head with it. Then they put her in the back of this minivan that I had, so I could leave with her to go to where we were going to stay before we flew up to the airport the next day. And she came out with a bamboo stick and was smacking me in the back of the head while I was driving, and screaming and smacking me in the head. And I'm like, would you stop hitting me? I'm trying to drive. We went from Pensacola to Fort Walton. We got pulled over 3 times by police because people saw her screaming and freaking out. And every time we got pulled over, I put out my court papers and handed them to the police. And then they tell her stop doing this. It was insane. So it was rough the whole time. She blamed me for taking her away from her grandparents, who she thought they were her people. And they told her that I didn't want her, which was crazy, because I was thousands of dollars on attorneys going back and forth. But they just told her all this stuff, and I tried. I told her, you can read the court papers. It's all there. She knew too, but she was angry,
Does she take after you or your wife, your ex-wife?
I would say probably me. She looks like me, and she acts like me, and she's super smart. Like I said, she got a full scholarship. She's always gotten straight A's. So, and she's stubborn like me. Yeah.
Did you guys have a breakthrough at all while she was living with you, that 4 years at all?
It was rough. It was rough. She didn't want to let me in. I would do what I drive her to things and, do what I can, but she was constantly just fighting with me. I owned a gym, and she didn't want to go to my gym. I had to buy her a gym membership at another gym.
Lesley, how do you repair a relationship like that? Moving forward, obviously, usually it's when people get older and more mature that they can then come back to each other. How do you repair something like that? Obviously Larry had a, crazy life, and, obviously a lot of trauma happened in his daughter's life, almost not exactly as Larry's, but mimicking Larry's in a sense, right?
Well, Larry had to pay the price for her not having the life that she wanted to continue. And then Larry also became like the guinea pig or like the target because she lost her mother.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of things going on in his daughter's mind. Now, as of right now, there's nothing that can be done because she doesn't even want to reach out to Larry. Now, is there going to be a time when she's going to rethink that? With age and some maturity, I think there will be. Whether she does something or not, we don't know. But, you know, Larry has to be able to be, you know, like what he said earlier, he can't do anything about it right now. He's not going to force her to talk to him. I mean, she wouldn't, even if he called her, she's not going to pick up the phone. But what he can do is like continue his life, like what he's always done. He has goals. This is important. Focus in controlling the controllables. And when she does reach out, then he'll be there.
Larry, you're good.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say is, you know, it seems like, you know, you're very tough, you know, psychologically. And I actually kind of, you know, respect that about you a lot, you know, and I always say, what would Larry do, you know, in a situation whenever I think things are going bad in my life, because you're tough in that sense. But I have to imagine with the child, because you know, I have young kids now, obviously, and with kids, everything changes. It's unless you have kids, you don't really understand it. But when you have kids, everything changes. Is that like the one thing? Is that the one vulnerability you have emotionally? Would you say your daughter?
What I went through with her, with the whole child custody and her growing up, fighting with her mom, emotionally was harder than all the other shit combined.
I thought, yeah.
Because everything else I can block out.
Yeah.
But not that. When her mother took her from me, it was like she ripped my heart out.
Yeah.
But you know, like, what are you going to do? I did everything I could do that I knew what I could do. At some point, you know, what are you going to do? Just keep beating yourself up about it?
Right.
It's not my choice at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you think that your daughter is an important? Like we talked about, you know, your life story is it's definitely a movie. At some point, it's going to be a movie. There's no way it can't be. Is the whole your daughter? Is that part of the whole movie? I mean, is that a integral part of it, or did you leave that out?
No, yeah. I mean, part of the reason I went out to Mexico and did all that is because I was just having a real difficult time trying to do visitation with her, and her mom not letting me see her. And then and then she did come out, did a visitation with me. We had a great time for like 3 days, and then her mom takes her back to the other side of the country. Yeah, probably made me make some bad choices.
I have to imagine that and Lesley, you can tell me if I'm wrong, because, you know, my father was a writer, and, you know, there's always got to be a story. And I remember bringing a story to my dad. I knew these wise guys from New York. I'm not going to mention any names, but they did some bad stuff. It was a true story, but it was incredible. The story was an incredible story about how they were kidnapping drug dealers and selling them back, ransoming back to the drug dealers, and they were making tons of money doing it. It was a crazy story. I said, Dad, these guys would be open to you writing a treatment, you know, for the screenplay. So my father was always looking for like something. He wanted it. He wrote a lot of books and stuff like that, but nothing like mainstream. I said, this could be mainstream. And he's like, the problem, Dave, he goes, with this story is there's no redemption. These guys are not likable characters, you know, even though they did fun stuff. He said, the story's got to have an ending. He goes, there's no good ending. These guys weren't really good guys. And I think that Larry, your story, I think that the fact that you and your daughter got back together, even though maybe it's not a perfect back together yet, I think that's really the climax of your story. I mean, right? At the end of the day, I mean, you and your daughter were reunited, you know?
Yeah, I mean, after all that, I was able to get her back, you know, against,
incredible.
You know, like I said, I had to go to the Supreme Court because every time I'd win in court, they'd appeal it. We appealed it all the way to the Supreme Court.
I think that should be the main theme of your movie right there. I mean, your daughter, the fact that you were trying to be with your daughter, the whole movie your whole life was revolved around that, and that's why that was your motivation for most of everything you did. Really, if you think about it,
a lot of it, yeah. I'm in prison, and I'm in the law library with this crazy ex-judge guy writing writs to the court. It's fighting a custody case.
And you won.
I did. I won.
It's an incredible. The whole story is so incredible. I really think the whole theme of your love for your daughter. I mean, that's really what motivated you. The whole movie was revolves around that from the very beginning when you first started, because you wanted to get your wife or the woman you got pregnant took your daughter away, and then eventually coming full circle. At the very end, it's I think it would be a blockbuster movie if you got the right person to write that screenplay. Because I read your screenplay. Larry sent me his screenplay, the treatment and everything like that. And it's good, but I think your daughter has to be the main theme of that movie.
Yeah, I think that's like still unfinished business. And
yeah.
I can't, I'll be honest with you, it still goes through my head like, what should I do? But I really don't know what to do at this point. It's up to her now.
Right. You remember the movie Blow? Did you see the movie Blow with Johnny Depp?
Yeah.
And he was, he loved his daughter. Unfortunately, he screwed up. He thought he was going to make one final score and he was going to be able to be with his daughter and everything was going to be great. And he went away to jail for 30 years or something like that. They put him away. Matter of fact, I actually had a friend who was in prison with him, like toward the end of his sentence there. And but you didn't. You didn't go to jail. You got out and you got custody of your daughter. And I really believe in the future you will have a relationship with her because she's going to realize that you're her only living blood relative, and she's stubborn like you are. she'll come around though. my father and my mother passed away when I was 14. My sister was 10, same as your daughter. And my father and my sister, all they did was fight, and especially when I left the house and went to college, because I was 14. So after about 3 years, I got into college, I left, and it was just the two of them. And they physical fights, like she would push my father, and my father was not he was a tough guy, he wasn't going to hit a girl, but they would curse at each other. You would not believe it. Like you would think they hated each other's guts, But in the end, they loved each other. They got back. My sister, once they were separated and she was living on her own for a while, she came back to my father, and they made up. And before my father passed, they were close. So I would have said they never would have been,
Yeah, there was one time my daughter was arguing with me. I don't remember what it was about, but she had a glass of some kind of drink and she just threw it in my face. And I went, and I stood up and I was like, and she looked like, oh shit. And then I was just like, I just had to walk out of the room.
Yeah. My sister knocked my father over once. He told me the story. He goes, your sister's very strong. I said, what do you mean she's very strong? He's like, she knocked me over. I said, she did? He's like, that's the only person in the entire world that I would ever allow that to happen. I said, I know. I said, because my father's a tough guy. And it's pretty funny, but it's crazy. It's definitely good. I mean, Lesley, as a therapist, let's wrap this up. What do you say to someone, when you hear a story like this? Like, what's your final analysis of this? And does Larry, where do you go from here? Like, what do you tell Larry in terms of advice as a therapist?
It's learning. Here's the thing. Life is about adapting to change. You can't go through life without there being some changes and a lot of shit that happens. So it's learning how to take that shit and make it fertilizer. What he's been able to do is really even further hone his mindset, by doing various kinds of things, such as, he has goals. He still has goals. It's really important to have goals, something to look forward to, something to give you direction, embracing change. Because a lot of times we fear change. We don't want to change because it takes work. And it's basically unpredictable. It's that unknown. We don't like the unknown. But when we embrace the change as part of life, and then we can remain flexible in our approach, accept that, frankly, unexpected events occur. In other words, shit happens. But it's important to be able to, and again, I keep saying this word, pivot, adjust your plans accordingly to whatever's going on. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle, that definitely, I mean, I checked out pictures of Larry's gym, which looks amazing, by the way.
It's awesome. Yeah.
So, I mean, like he lives the health. It's not just the training. He lives the bodybuilding lifestyle. He lives a healthy lifestyle, because when you're able to work on your physical health, that actually helps contribute to your emotional resilience. So that's really important. Learning from setbacks. We all messed up. But the important thing is not so much making the mistake, it's what did you learn from that mistake? And through a lot of this, I mean, Larry has demonstrated a whole bunch of coping mechanisms, like strategies, but maybe you guys can learn some of these strategies that he's used to be able to get him through this. Don't give up. No matter what the situation looks like, think about how can you get out of a negative situation? Because the moment you give up, you know what? Your chances are gone. If you want a fighting chance, you have to fight for it. And that's where the emotional resilience comes in. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to practice that emotional resilience before the next bad thing happens.
I agree 100%. The story is absolutely incredible, what you went through, and the fact that you came out on the other side of it, and you're basically a success. I mean, a lot of people would have given up, and I've seen, if you go to his website, what's the website, Jim, again? The gym website?
undergroundperformancegym.com.
Yeah, I'll pull it up just so people can see it. It's unbelievable. I mean, that's got to be your pride and joy, Larry, huh?
Yeah, I built that gym, and I'm like, if I could have like Disneyland for a gym, what would it be like? And I made that.
Do you have any desire to open another gym, or is this enough for you?
Anything's possible. I mean, right now I'm in the process of building out brand new locker rooms and showers and all that. So that's my project, on my immediate project. But yeah.
Right. No, it's a great gym. It's 24 hours, right? Will you have a key code?
Yep. Every member has their own key card. They come 24/7. The gym's never closed, and it is really underground. It used to be an old Sears building, and this was the basement of the Sears building, and we're right below a Smart and Final. So the whole thing is underground, and it's huge.
Well, congratulations on that gym, and if anyone's in the area, where exactly? What city is that in?
It's in Ventura, and actually, one of your training clients contacted me, said he's going to be in Ventura this weekend. He wants to come train at the gym.
That's funny. Yeah, I always tell people if they're in the area, just check you out and go say hello and mention my name and stuff like that. But that's awesome, Larry. And it takes a lot, and I asked you some pretty delving questions because I wanted to let people know because you have this very tough exterior and you make things like not seem like they really bother you that much, but people needed to know the severity of and the danger of what you went through, because maybe other guys would have been on here crying about what they went through, but it was really serious. Your life was in serious danger more than once, and you came out of it, and you're doing really well. And so I think that's a testament to your mental fortitude, like Lesley mentioned. And not everyone would have been able to do that. But I think that Larry's the kind of guy that you could have sent him into Afghanistan. He probably would have come out of it fine as well. Well, he's got that personality.
I thought about this. My father was a World War II fighter, and he helped get he fought the Nazis in World War II and opened up the camps for the Jews to get out.
Really?
And he was a little crazy in a way. He had that look. He could look at me just look at you and you'd be like, oh shit. And but he taught us from a young age, you have to stand up for yourself. You have to fight, be tough. So I think that was kind of bred into me from when I was a kid. You know, you just have to stand up for yourself and get through situations.
Sure. No, it makes sense. Well, obviously, I always say that, you know, the stuff that happens early in life prepares you for what's going to happen later in life. And obviously, you know, you going to jail early in life, obviously, you know, conditioned you to be able to handle the situation that you were given later in life and to get through all that. And then to, you know, get through getting your daughter back. So, and then opening your own business and being, you know, independently, you know, able to support yourself and have your own, be your own boss. I mean, because after all, I think that's something that everyone wants, right? I mean, that's what I always wanted. I didn't want to have a boss. I wanted to be my own boss. And sometimes it's hard to do that, but if you have the mental strength to do it, and that's why I think bodybuilding is so great, because it teaches you how to be, number one, self-reliant on yourself. And number two, that is, you work hard enough at anything, you can accomplish whatever you want. And it's the same work ethic, right?
I was telling Lesley, you know, she was like, you know, what message can you give to people? And I'm like, you know, sometimes I have a goal in mind. I have an idea. I want to accomplish something, but I don't really know exactly how I'm going to do it, but I just do it. And somehow along the way, I figure it out. In other words, sometimes maybe, you know, I have an idea of what I want to accomplish, but I don't know exactly, you know, how I'm going to get there, every piece of the puzzle, but I just go forward and dive into it and take that risk. And somehow I figure it out on the way. And you have to do that in business or whatever you're doing. Otherwise, if you don't ever try to do anything, you won't accomplish anything. So maybe, you know, there's something you want to do, but you don't know exactly how you're going to do it. You just go do it and it'll happen somehow. You may fail a couple of times, but eventually you're going to figure it out. You'll get there.
Very wise words coming from a very wise man. Thank you, Larry, for joining us. Thanks, Lesley, as always. And it's going to take us to the end of another episode of Iron Therapy. I'm Dave Palumbo. We'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.